I'm Carl Azouz. This is CNN Student News. It is the first day of June and our last week before summer break. Thank you very much for joining us. First up, a major move for the country's largest automaker, as General Motors is expected to file for bankruptcy today. This comes 1 month after Chrysler, another of the so-called Big Three U.S. car companies, did the very same thing. Under the terms of General Motors' bankruptcy, the company will be reorganized and essentially taken over by the government. 30 years ago, GM made up more than 40% of U.S. auto sales. Today, that number's 19%. The company's reported more than $90 billion in losses since 2005. As the bankruptcy process begins, Christine Romans looks back at the history of GM and the American car.
Henry Ford started at the beginning of the last century with 4 wheels and a running board. 1908 was the birth of American car culture. That same year, General Motors was formed in Flint, Michigan. It wasn't until 1925 when the Big Three was complete with the formation of Chrysler Corporation.
When the Big Three emerged, they not only emerged as, rivals that really gave Americans much better automobiles at the time, but they also cemented the American automobile as a world standard.
As goes General Motors, so goes the nation. That phrase defined America's economic power for much of the last century.
So many folks were employed either at General Motors or the other 2 major car makers, making steel and all the other components that go into cars. It just meant that if the automobile companies were prospering, the country was prospering too.
Today, there are 74,000 rank-and-file GM workers in the U.S., but in its heyday, GM was the largest industrial company in the world, a technology leader. By 1979, 600,000 people worked for GM. Those good jobs helped build America's middle class.
It also allowed us to migrate out from the cities, to have that corner lot in a suburb, to basically get away from a lot of the congestion of the metropolitan areas.
General Motors was the company that revolutionized what we drove, how we thought about our cars, and how we paid for them. GM invented auto loans and the model year. It was the first to hire designers instead of engineers to create new car concepts. Think big fins and chrome of the 1950s and 60s. And everything changed. Ford adopted flashy fins with the Ford Fairlane, as did Chrysler with the popular DeSoto. Automobiles from the Big Three put their stamp on popular culture, from music to movies to television. What's considered to be the first rock and roll song ever recorded was Rocket 88 by Ike Turner, about a GM product. Hey, baby, we'll ride in style. The Pontiac GTO, considered by many to be the first true muscle car, was showcased in a song by Ronnie and the Daytonas. Little GTO. The Corvette on Route 66, the 1948 Ford in the iconic movie Grease, the Trans Am in Smokey and the Bandit, and Archie Bunker's Old LaSalle.
G.R.O. LaSalle ran great. Those were the days.
Today's shout-out goes out to Mr. Schultz's civics classes at David Brearley Middle School in Kenilworth, New Jersey. Where did the word cyberspace first appear? Was it in a movie, a book, a scientific paper, or a magazine article? You've got 3 seconds. Go! Author William Gibson is credited with creating the word in a science fiction novel. That's your answer, and that's your shout-out.
It may have started as science fiction, but these days, practically all of us, including the government, spend time in cyberspace. But President Obama says we are not as prepared as we ought to be as a government or a country for cyber attacks. That is why he is planning to create a new position, Cybersecurity Coordinator. Gene Meserve explains the new job.
Hackers cut power to a skyscraper and then reprogram it to play Space Invaders in a spoof video on YouTube. I got you, man! But cybersecurity is not a laughing matter.
It's now clear this cyber threat is one of the most serious economic and national security challenges we face as a nation.
Americans use the internet to bank and shop and talk to one another. Electricity, water, transportation all depend on it. But every day there are attacks. The White House estimates in the past 2 years, cybercrime has cost Americans more than $8 billion. And last year alone, hackers stole $1 trillion worth of business secrets. Military and intelligence networks have been penetrated, and tests have shown a cyber attack can destroy critical infrastructure like this generator. President Obama says the country is not prepared.
From now on, our digital infrastructure, the networks and computers we depend on every day, will be treated as they should be, as a strategic national asset. Protecting this infrastructure will be a national security priority.
The president will handpick a cybersecurity coordinator to integrate policies across government, work closely with the private sector, and coordinate the federal response to attacks. Still unknown who will get the job.
If you get the wrong person or you put them in an office that doesn't have very much power, you can have the best plan in the world and it still won't work.
The plan is short on specifics, though the president says government will not dictate security standards to private industry and will not monitor private networks or internet traffic. Security experts say they generally like the steps the administration is taking, but warn there are many more steps to take on the long road to securing the nation's cyber infrastructure. Jean Meserve, CNN, Washington.
Heading across the Atlantic now to celebrate a big British birthday. Big Ben, one of the world's most famous clocks, turned 150 years old yesterday. Recently voted as Britain's favorite monument, it's actually just the 14-ton bell that is named Big Ben, although most people use it to describe the tower and the clock too. Despite a couple disruptions over the years, Big Ben has helped keep London on time since 1859. This college baseball game didn't last quite 150 years, but it did go into extra innings, 16 of them. Texas and Boston College took the field at 7 p.m. and left it at 2 a.m. after playing the longest game in NCAA history. 25 innings, almost 3 full games. At one point, a relief pitcher threw 13 scoreless innings. In the end, an RBI single helped Texas triumph 3-2.
A word to the wise: sustainable, capable of being maintained with minimal long-term effects on the environment.
Sustainability projects can be as simple as recycling paper and plastic and using recycled materials, or they can be as complex as altering the viscosity of waste oil to convert it to biodiesel fuel. There's one place in Atlanta, Georgia that's doing all of this, and it is a school. Jackie Jarris takes us on a tour of the campus's environmentally friendly efforts.
The botany classroom is the great outdoors for students at the Lovett School in Atlanta.
This is something we'll actually use later in life.
They're digging in the dirt, getting lessons in environmental sustainability.
It's much healthier for you. It's less chemicals, it's completely natural, and it costs less.
The school's organic garden is just the beginning.
The idea that your labor can then nourish you is a life lesson, and the fact that you take responsibility. If you do something wrong, you have to fix it.
Food from the garden goes to the cafeteria, and menus change depending on what's fresh. The dining hall is also trayless, saving thousands of gallons of water used to wash them.
The cafeteria does more than just cook with sustainability in mind. For example, all of the oil that's used for fried foods is ultimately turned into biodiesel.
This is the actual end product.
That biofuel is used to fill up the school's maintenance vehicles for half the cost of gas. There's even a wind turbine on campus creating electricity. But the key is keeping the students involved.
It's really important for us to educate young people to be good citizens for the 21st century.
It's my earth and my water and my air too, so I don't want anybody trashing it.
Jackie Jarris, CNN, Atlanta.
Before we go, the answer to one of life's great mysteries. Why did the chicken cross the road? To get a donut. At least that's this bird brain's excuse. All right, he's actually a rooster, but you get it. Every morning he'd hear the opening bell at Scrumdiddlyumptious Donuts and dash across the street to get his complimentary breakfast. Did heavy traffic ever scare him away from his risky run? We already told you, this guy's no chicken. Well, we will be balked tomorrow. You guys have a great one.